Biden and Trump agreed to 2 debates before November election. So I'm kind of surprised by this. Because as I said, I don't think the Democrats are really trying to win legitimately almost at all. They're relying almost entirely on rigging. So why bother with the debates? Perhaps because it doesn't matter. But I don't know. You could do yourself more harm than good. Or you do yourself more harm just by showing up than by not. Now, what I will say is that last time, because Biden was an unknown, and because Trump's presidency had been chaotic, the left's fault, not his, but still, some people were interested in something less crazy. So some people did sort of bounce back and try to go for something more normal. Not all of Biden's votes in 2020 were rigged, just too many of them. So a lot of people did go for that. That would be a major factor, and a few other things too, in Biden actually polling relatively well in 2020. Now, the polls, I think, were still exaggerated in his favor, as the evidence of rigging suggests. But still, even then, polling for Biden now is much worse. And the reason for that probably is that during Biden's term, it's been roughly as chaotic. Biden's been doing a very bad job, and people realize actually Trump was pretty good. So, Biden's popularity is way less today. I believe it's since September, Biden's been polling worse than Trump. So, we got a real potential this time to if the election was rigged only as hard as it was last time, that Trump would win. It's pretty likely, which is why they're going to rig it even harder. So, given the fact that Biden is currently quite a fair way behind, maybe that's the reason he's willing to do debates, because he's already far behind. What have they got to lose? Maybe they'll be able to get something over on Trump. I don't think it's very likely, but maybe. Let's read on. President Joe Biden will debate former President Donald Trump twice before November general election, first on June 27th, so about a month and 10 days, on CNN, and then on September 10th on ABC. The debates were organized after Biden issued a challenge to Trump on social media Wednesday morning. I actually don't know why they would do this. I think it would be more in their interest to not. Maybe they're just that desperate. Maybe they have a plan. Bear in mind, it's on CNN, so it's definitely friendly turf for the Bidens. Maybe they same old tricks, but it's Trump. He'll probably do pretty well. I don't know. If he gets assassinated there, then the Democrats did it. That's all I'm saying. Quote, Donald Trump lost 2 debates to me in 2020. Were they imaginary debates, Biden? And since then, he hasn't shown up for a debate because he's winning so hard he doesn't need to. Biden said in a video posted, I noticed, Biden, that for the 2024 Democrat primaries, you didn't debate anyone. Oh no, it's the same thing that happened to Trump. The only difference is he's not technically incumbent, but really he is. So that's the only difference. You didn't debate either, did you? Biden said in the video on X, quote, now he is acting like he wants to debate me again. Well, make my day, pal. I'll even do it twice. I hear you're free on Wednesdays, he said. Is that the day that your illegitimate unlawful, unjust Justice Department is not trying to get him put in prison or trying to get his money taken away so he can't campaign? Yeah, so more rigging. This is big talk from Biden, and they're continuing his PR management team are continuing this notion of Biden as being this sort of like rough, like toughened old man who's seen it all, like Dirty Harry. Right? I don't think it's working, but that's what they're going for. Six's analysis was that they were relying on rigging the debate by choosing questions. Well, of course, they'll do that anyway, but Trump still does well even in those debates. What we might see is the most unfair treatment of a presidential debate in history. That's the only way I could see that this could benefit them. We probably will see that. Con says it's very red. No Dem will say they're Dem on their banners, but if Trump can get rid of the cartels, we might get a state back. It's very possible, yes. Honestly, if Trump just implements as a executive order or by any other means, regulations, just a few simple, obvious regulations on elections. I'll see if I can remember them. Voter ID, paper ballots, same-day voting, and mail-in voting only for truly exceptional medical exceptions. If he does those 4 things, implements them federally, which I think is reasonable and fair and good idea, Democrats won't win for like 10 years. They may still be able to win in California, New York, and a few other states, but most states will turn red because they already are red. If Trump does just one order with those 4 things on it, it changes the whole picture, assuming they follow that law, which they wouldn't necessarily, but then they've got other problems. That's all he has to do. If he does that, that almost on its own ends the culture war. That's why they don't want him to get in my humble opinion. That's why the theory that they're going to let him get in is, I think, nonsense. The only exception is if the whole thing has been pantomime and Trump was always their guy, the whole thing was a pretense, and then when he gets in, he's just going to usher in the next era of evil, which is a long shot. It's a long gamble to say that. It's a lot of pantomime. It's a lot of pantomime. It's not technically impossible, but I don't think so. So Zorg says the Dems won't release power without violence. You may be right, but if they do, they'll have chosen their path, and it won't end well for them. In the US, the Republicans will do best on the violence problem. They won't go out quietly. They will go out kicking and screaming, but they'll go out. In addition to the video, Jen O'Malley Dillon, the Biden campaign chairwoman, sent the Commission on Presidential Debates a letter advising members of the panel the president would not be taking part in their event, proposing alternatives in June and September instead, excluding independent candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Oh dear. So I saw this as well. RFK is, I think rightly, not pleased about this. You know what this could be? It could be that, okay, so here's the possible additional motivation. Biden is maybe as much scared of RFK as he is of Trump, because already Biden is polling badly against Trump, but that's specifically when asked, will you vote for Biden or Trump? Biden's behind. When it comes to the actual election, if RFK is more of a factor than just a non-issue, then he could completely spoil Biden's chances in certain places. It may be that the RFK scores 5% and it's all potential Biden voters, and then Biden is 1% behind Trump as a result. That could go very, very poorly for him. So Biden, and he would love to get rid of Trump, obviously, but he has more of a chance of being able to get rid of RFK. So that's what it is. He wants to get rid of RFK, so he wants to consume Trump's debate time and energy debating him so that Trump does not set up debates just with RFK. Chat, press 1 if you would be happy to see a debate set up with just Trump and RFK. I think that would be just to keep Biden out of it, because they're not serious political contenders. But Trump and RFK are, I think, both honest political figures with many opposite opinions. I would love to see that. It would be fantastic. It would demonstrate a rejection of the establishment's legitimacy, which would be accurate and right. Now, I'm happy to see debates between Trump and Biden as well. I'm also happy to see debates with all 3 of them. But what does Biden really not want? He really does not want that spoiler candidate. He really does not want RFK stepping on his territory. I don't know if RFK yet will be a 0%er, a 1%er, a 5%er, even a 10%er. I don't know. But I would guess somewhere between 1 and 5, which could be easily enough to swing some of these states if RFK is able to run there. Even if it's just a write-in, he might get quite a lot of votes. Because most, if not all, at least most states in the US are internally popular votes, I think. which is a problem in many ways, but it wouldn't, therefore, RFK could flip one to Trump just by competing. So yeah, that probably is his motivation. As much as you said, Sticks said, just being unfair to Trump. I don't think that's enough on its own. But trying to muscle RFK out as much as he possibly can, that sounds like a more plausible reason. So anyway, maybe Biden will cancel the debates before they happen. But in so doing, it will also have prevented debates with RFK from happening in the first place. But then he also doesn't have to meet Trump on stage. Why would he care about his reputation? He's going to rig it. Mark my words, see if that happens. See if Biden cancels these debate appearances. The Biden-Harris campaign is proposing that the first debate be in late June after Donald Trump's New York criminal trial is likely to be over and after President Biden returns from meeting with lower leaders of the G7 summit. See what they've done there? They've set up a bit of a juxtaposition there. Well, we both have things to do, you know. Trump is in court because he's an evil criminal, and he, you know, by that time he may be in prison because of the evil things he's done. Meanwhile, the austere and respectable leader Biden is representing our noble nation on the world stage to all the other great nations of the world. He'll be our best foot forward out there on the gilded carpets. And so when they're both done with those things, then we'll do the debate. Yeah, subtle wording there. Anyway, Biden Communications Director Michael Tyler told reporters on Wednesday, providing Biden's reasoning behind the dates. A second presidential debate would occur in September prior to the beginning of early voting. Notably, the reason that Trump is facing those charges is because of Biden's regime. The developments rankled Kennedy, who accused Biden and Trump of colluding to lock America into a head-to-head matchup that 70% say they do not want. Really? I'm not sure 70% say that. I hadn't seen stats on that. Maybe they don't want Trump versus Biden because they don't want Biden. A lot of Trump voters. Like, there's a large portion of the US that really do like Trump. I don't know. Maybe it's 70% of America who aren't the diehard Trump voters, and 30% are. I'm not sure though. Either way, I think RFK should be included. But I don't know if it's necessarily Trump that's trying to lock him out. I think Trump will be smart to include him. Then again, you got a question: is RFK potentially going to draw voters not only from Biden but also from Trump? Perhaps Trump reckons that he can convince a lot of independents that he is actually the only sane choice, especially because Biden is, sure, he's the establishment, the quote-unquote safe option, the one the press like, but he's also demented and clearly incompetent. So a lot of independents will vote for Trump because he's clearly the sanest choice. Perhaps then, therefore, Trump would also like to keep RFK out of the ring, because then otherwise RFK is likely who they'd vote for. Well, maybe they wouldn't. He is a smaller candidate, but maybe some of them would. So maybe Trump reckons he could lose just as much to RFK as Biden, but I don't think so. RFK is definitely closer to the left than to Trump's positions. So I don't know about that. Either way, it's possible. It may be that Trump really didn't have much of a say in it. If he had said, "I'll agree as long as RFK is involved," I don't know if that would have worked, if that would have looked good. There'd be reasons why that wouldn't work. Quote, "They are trying to exclude me from their debate because they are afraid I would win," Kennedy posted on X. Now, don't get me wrong, Kennedy. I kind of like you, not because I agree with a lot of your policies, but because you're an independent and I think you're an honest man. But that doesn't make you a good debater. And I hate to say it, but your vocal disability, shall we call it, your vocal deformity, even, which I don't begrudge you for, of course, and I wouldn't find it to be a significant reason to trust you less or to vote for you less, but it will make it more difficult for you to be heard on the debate stage, make it more difficult for you to enunciate, make it more difficult for you to interrupt, make it more difficult for you to emote, so you will be at a massive disadvantage. And this is Trump we're talking about. Against Biden, you would have a better chance, because the only thing Biden can produce is mean-spirited quips and rehearsed lines. If you can get them off script, you can do pretty well. With Trump, he excels off script. but he's also quite good on script. So I don't know RFK about that. I don't think so. I think that's just bluster from RFK there, with all due respect. He then says, by excluding me from the stage, Presidents Biden and Trump, thank you at least for referring to them both as president, although Biden's less legitimate to be referred to in that way than Trump is, seek to avoid discussion of their 8 years of mutual failure, including deficits, wars, lockdowns, chronic disease, and inflation. Well, deficits, Biden's been much worse for that than Trump. I think Trump was the only reason that Trump had any sort of deficits because of COVID. Wars, Trump didn't start any new ones and ended one. Biden, I believe, started a new one. Lockdowns, Trump did not cause that himself. They were state lockdowns. I don't think Trump opposed them hard enough, but still, it wasn't him that did it. Biden has, however, not implemented any, but has shown intent in favor of them even long after they've passed out of public favor. Chronic disease, which again wasn't Trump's fault, and the way that they handled COVID was all right. Could have been better, but it was all right. And I don't know about Biden on the back of that. And inflation, which has been, it increased a little bit under Trump, specifically because of COVID, I think it's fair to say. And then after COVID's worst period, it skyrocketed under Biden. So these flaws that you mention, RFK, they're not exclusively Biden's flaws, but they're almost entirely Biden's flaws. So why are you acting like it's both? Is it just an easy way to attack Trump? I think RFK would be better off not attacking Trump. I think kind of like Vivek, where it's like, yeah, you may disagree with Trump, but he's clearly not evil. He's not an unfair opponent, or he wouldn't be as unfair as the Democrats would be. Surely you have more at odds with them than with Trump. And you and Trump are both anti-establishment underdogs. You might do better at least being neutral with Trump so that people who were Trump supporters, but are maybe on the lighter side politically, see you and think, okay, well, there's a sane option. I'll vote for him. Instead, now, if they think you're mean-spirited towards Trump, they didn't dislike Trump. They just wanted someone a bit gentler, a bit lighter. If they see you being mean-spirited towards him, they might think, oh, just another establishment figure who hates Trump because he's the underdog. I don't know, you might not be onto a winner there. Kieran says, I see how it is. When Teddy Roosevelt fights citizens, it's funny and endearing. When Biden tries it, it's inappropriate. Hypocrisy. Earlier, Trump quickly accepted Biden's challenge, describing the president as the worst debater and claiming he cannot put two words together. He previously started placing an empty podium beside him on stage at his rallies in his own debate challenge. Interesting. So Biden can put two words together. He's not a literal drooling mess, but I'm pretty sure that the only times he does good speeches is when he's quite fired up, shall we say. With all kinds of experimental drugs, I don't doubt. That said, I want to be very, very fair and very clear. Don't underestimate Biden. He spent his entire life preparing to be an expert, unfair, strategic debater. And if he had his full faculties, he would be a difficult opponent. Not because he has good opinions. He spent almost no time talking about his actual what policies he really wants, but because he is probably a good tactical debater, i.e., dishonest debater. He's been preparing for that his whole life. The only difference now is that he's starting to lose his brain. He's starting to lose his mind. So if that mind loss can be offset, if he has a lucid day, he's actually not bad. Obviously bad, but not inexperienced, not useless. So don't underestimate him. But it seems like most of his days are not lucid. But they have the drugs, so they can create a lucid day. So yeah, do actually be careful with him. Don't underestimate him. The State of the Union. Obviously, what he was saying was bad and dishonest and such. But his actual speech was delivered fairly well. There wasn't much slurring. So don't underestimate him. Quote, it's time for a debate so that he can explain to the American people his highly destructive open border policy, new and ridiculous EV mandates, the allowance of crushing inflation, high taxes, and his really weak foreign policy, which is allowing the world to catch on fire. Trump posted on Truth Social, quote, I would strongly recommend more than 2 debates, and for excitement purposes, a very large venue, although Biden is supposedly afraid of crowds. That's only because he doesn't get them. Got him! Just tell me when I'll be there, he added. So I will move on from this story. There is a bit more to the article, but I'll move on because there's more to the story. But I'll move on from this article. So there is that one. Yeah, this is weird. Okay, ready? Biden demands no audience for debates with Trump. Now here's the thing. If you are initiating something on the basis of, you coward, you won't do it, you won't face me, let's see you step up against me, I'm the big man here, and then you say, but I insist no one's allowed to come see it, and I insist on these rules, and I demand that you don't get to act like the big man and then start adding conditions to your big manness. The person who doesn't need to debate with you to succeed, like, I don't know, Trump, he could make demands in order to join your event. Then again, it might not have been structured like that. Let's read on. The Biden campaign demanded that there not be a live audience full of raucous or disruptive partisans and donors who consume valuable debate time with noisy spectacles of approval or jeering. Now, I know what you're thinking. Biden doesn't want Trump to be applauded. And I am here to tell you, in no uncertain terms, yeah, probably. I think that's a factor. But bear in mind that there are some who would applaud for Biden as well. But just like on internet comment sections, on sites that have less than almost complete censorship, the right wing does tend to do better in a crowd or like user-generated content environment. They do tend to have the louder voice. So that probably is a factor. However, I will say that having, say, 10 to 15% of the entire time of the debate taken up with clapping or jeering or some such thing, you could argue that that's useful feedback. It's important to hear the people's response. You could also argue it's kind of a waste. I could see both perspectives. I think if it were up to me, I would say, yes, let there be an audience and let them applaud. But have a strict understanding that they're allowed to applaud, but they must keep it brief. If they're going to applaud, they only get, say, 5 seconds of applause at a time, and then have a light that comes on that says, quiet, please. And they probably will respect that for the most part. And you can continue from there. It feels as try to imagine anyone getting excited enough for Biden to cheer. Dude, again, as I said before, don't underestimate Biden, and don't underestimate the ability for the people that write his scripts to write something fiery that appeals strongly to the left, perhaps even to the majority of people, or some stupid quip about Trump that will get the front rows cheering. But broadly, yes, you're right. And like again, Biden can be somewhat fiery, not actually charismatic, but he can deliver lines with a better quality than the slurring mess that we've seen him be when he's not on the special drugs. And don't get me wrong as well, like a lot of politicians get on the special drugs. I think probably less than Biden does. But we've seen Trump sniffing a bit too much when he's come on the stage against Hillary, for example. Yes, he did a bump of coke behind the stage to give himself maximum performance. The thing is, he doesn't necessarily need it. Biden does. He needs it to function. Trump only needs it to function at his maximum level. I, for example, have Monster with the streams. I also have other things that help. My diet, indeed, helps to some extent. Or people's diets can, either way. So chemical assistance is not that unusual, but Biden doesn't just need it to get to peak performance, he needs it to get to performance. Any level. So yeah, anyway, I'll continue reading. Joe Biden and Donald Trump have agreed to 2 debates taking place. I'll skip the boilerplate that we already read about. Ahead of the 2 candidates agreeing to debates Wednesday morning, Biden campaign communications director Michael Tyler told CNN the debates should be in studio with no audience so the candidates can clearly articulate their visions for the country. Now, is it possible that Biden is expecting to be easily distracted? So maybe there is something to this. Maybe, and maybe you guys know better than I do, maybe dementia is people with dementia of a certain kind. Yes, they're much worse at public speaking, obviously much worse at speaking in general. But even when they have the drugs, perhaps they have a greater sensitivity to being interrupted, to having, especially like a large crowd interrupting them, especially someone that they can't shout back at. Having his train of thought interrupted by applause. Sure, you can't do anything about Trump doing it. Or, well, actually, the moderators can and will. But with the audience, you can't have the moderators penalize the audience. So perhaps that's the reason that he's so likely to lose his train of thought. But what's that again? That they are concerned that the audience says it's just such a disadvantage for Biden. When asked if an audience was a deal breaker for the Biden campaign, Tyler deflected and said, listen, if it's Donald Trump who said he would do this anytime, anywhere, any place, yeah, but not under any circumstances. So I don't think they should have problems with what he would propose. He's the one who said he's ready to go. He said, yeah, which is an easy line, rehearsed and prepared in advance. But why are you making the demand? You've given a reason, but is that the real reason? I don't know if it is. Again, anytime, anywhere, any place does not say anyhow. It's just, yes, I will have a debate. Now, the understanding of debate comes probably largely from what debates have been, which is big, televised, live audience, arranged timings, moderator between 2 people, or sometimes a town hall. There's other kinds of debates as well. But if you say, join me for a debate, and then you bring him to like a literal physical torture session where you just poke him with hot pokers and he has to go stand in a cage and he's like, his mouth is gagged so he can't talk. You can call that a debate, but that would be the anyhow. If you said anyhow, then you could begin to go in that kind of direction where it just becomes ridiculously unfair. He didn't say anyhow, did he? He said anytime, anywhere, any place. Those last 2 are the same thing, incidentally. The CNN debate taking place in Atlanta, Georgia, will have no audience. Okay, so they actually assented. Of course they did at CNN. The outlet wrote in a press release, to ensure candidates may maximize time allotted in the debate, no audience will be present. Now, don't get me wrong. Trump will benefit from there not being an audience to some extent in the same way that Biden does. I think Trump having the cheers of the audience for most of the things he said would be a better benefit for him, but he's not going to lose because there's no audience. He'll do fine. It is currently unclear whether the ABC debate will have an audience. The campaign has said the debates have been structured like an entertainment spectacle and not a serious exchange of ideas that reflect the enormous stakes of the election. Yeah, I don't believe that they can be that, because you guys are liars, all of you. What you really want for the US is nothing like what you claim to want. Not as far as your actions elucidate. Anyway. And the upcoming debates should not have a live audience full of raucous or disruptive partisans and donors who consume valuable debate time with noisy spectacles of approval or jeering. Right, the only time I've seen an audience that appears to be stacked is in favor of Democrats. Do you guys remember that debate between, okay, in this case, it was not a Democrat, but it was the opponent of an obviously MAGA Republican. We saw the debate between Ron DeSantis and Chris Christie, I think. And the audience seemed to be artificially cheering. Like, it seemed to be a very small audience artificially cheering for DeSantis' opponent, but not for him. That was an example of a stacked audience. And I think there have been others of that. I remember seeing, like, weirdly, like at E3 events for like Xbox, when shitty games were being announced, you'd hear like yay from the audience, like people at the front rows cheering and no one else cheering. There were some famous examples of that. Yes, Charlie Crist. So I would be much more suspicious of the Democrats doing that than the Republicans, which again is why it's strange, because they would surely rather do that. Maybe they'll say, no audience, but we've hand-picked a selection of approved audience members, and then it's going to be like Democrat shills. That would be interesting. Biden's demand for no audience was called out by users on X. Now, remind me, chat, how many debates were there between Biden and Trump in 2020? I remember there not being any. Am I mistaken? Were there some? Do you remember this much?
I think there were some in 2020 because there were a few Bidenisms that became sort of catchphrases for annoying lefty Twitter for a while. There was the whole like, come on, man, or whatever thing. I think that came from one of their debates, but they weren't. There was like one or something like that, and it wasn't very interesting.
I don't remember there being many anyway, yeah. Because there was one. Yeah. Either way, it's not enough for two presidents. But chat, correct me if what do you think on this? What do you think the ideal number of widely viewable debates there should be between presidential candidates is? 1, 2, no, I'm thinking 15. I think 20, 25, lots. They should be every week or so. It's important. Every issue should be addressed in depth. Goes to say I have other shit to do. Not as far as I'm concerned. No, the shit they should be doing is speaking to the American people. In this case, American. And one of the ways they do that is debates. And for one of the best ways to do it, actually. So no, that is the shit they have to do, Ghost. The other stuff they have to do is secondary to that. One more thing on this debate thing, which is interesting. Great news. Sean Hannity says Biden's debate rules extraordinarily favorable for Trump. Okay, that's interesting. I mean, the debate rules are that Biden must debate Trump, which is extraordinarily favorable for Trump. Fox uses Sean Hannity said Wednesday that President Joe Biden's 2024 presidential debate rules are extraordinarily favorable for 2024. Blah, blah, blah. Biden proposed he and Trump face off in 2 televised debates, one in June. Skipping this again because we already know this. Hannity told Fox and Friends co-host the president's debate rules requirements were great news for Trump. This made my day. This made my morning. Hannity said this is great news if you're Donald J. Trump today for a lot of reasons. If I were Trump, I'd say why not make it June, July, August, September. Let's have 4, Joe. Really make my day. You want to have a debate? Let's have debates. Okay, that's Biden's thing. I think this is phenomenal news for a couple of reasons, he continued. 1, I think that Donald Trump will wipe the floor with him, and I don't care if we get these State of the Union jacked up Joe with caffeine, Red Bull, or whatever. Yeah, I think it's more than just caffeine. Or we get regular Joe that could barely walk off the stage last night. I think it's a great opportunity. I mean, that's true already, but that doesn't have anything to do with the rules. Also, he proposed a format that I think is extraordinarily favorable for the president, which is if you're not talking, your mic's not on. Interesting. It is interesting that Biden is trying to control, I didn't know about this actually, Biden's trying to control every aspect of this because he thinks that if you are a weak debater, then you want to make sure that your opponent has as few chances to speak as possible. That it's as regulated as possible. If you are okay, here's the thing. The whole idea of we should take it in turns, we should not have an audience shouting over us, we should just be able to spell out our opinion. No, that's a press release. That's a rehearsed speech. A competent leader should be able to command the room no matter what. And the leader of the world hegemon should be able to command the room. So, frankly, the audience should be untethered, and the candidate should only be lightly directed in their times. Perhaps someone records the times each candidate has had and gives a portion of the overtime to the other one at the end. Maybe they don't even bother. I think less regulated would actually produce a more meritocratic result. Maybe not as autistically fair or precisely fair, but who cares about that? That's not what you're looking for. Do you think other world leaders are going to give you time to speak if it really comes down to it? So no. I don't think so. You want to be measuring for charisma. You want to be measuring for presence, for the ability to make sure you're the one heard in a room. And Trump wins that hand down every time. Trying to regularize it like this is just a way to give any advantage to Biden, who will not win that. I believe that the town hall debate format is much more like that. And you'll notice, back when Trump did the town hall with Hillary, I remember it was pretty good. Just a big circle with Trump and Hillary walking around the middle and talking to each other. Trump gave her time to talk. Sure, he interrupted her, but she interrupted him as well. But they both got time to express their opinions. But they also both got time to have a pithy instant response to something that they thought was ridiculous. It worked pretty well, I think. More debates like that. Sure, have some structured ones too, but more debates like that. So let's continue reading. Hannity goes on, I think one of the difficulties in 2020 is probably Donald Trump in that first debate was too aggressive. This will then kind of put, rails in place so that one person talks at a time, and the more Joe talks, I think the worse he does. That may be true as well, actually. For your opinions, Hannity, yes, but some of the left like what he says. Granted, probably not as much as of the right do like what Trump says. Still. The Trump campaign has been calling on Biden to debate the former president several times, especially after Biden told SiriusXM's Howard Stern that he would be happy to debate Trump somewhere. Trump repeatedly challenged Biden to debate him anywhere, anytime, any place before Biden finally proposed his terms. Yeah. That, I think, is all I'm going to cover on the debates story.